Getting inverted. 3, 2, 1. Well, Godziak with such an impressive performance just a year ago, 8th place, earning himself an instant invite back this year, starting out his run strong. Backflip off the start tower. Now, you talked about Simon Godziak being the finest freeride export out of Poland. Poland is such an unlikely place to produce rampage competitors. It is flat. I've been there. I've visited Simon. Wow, look at that! Massive! Taking off from the furthest back takeoff point of Price is Right drop. Now, this guy does not have this type of terrain to practice at home. Look at that. Toboggan on the new drop that he did not have last year. Now, this is a new routing as well. Hip in, completely off camber. He spun this last year. Here he is, spinning it again. Oh, so smooth. What a year has done for his precision. Front flip, Simon Godziak. You know what, when he comes out here to Utah, he savors every minute. You know, a lot of these riders can come out and practice with a short few-hour drive, but Simon Godziak prepares the entire week leading up to the event, and it's insane to think how much he can progress in a year's time without terrain like this at home.
Yeah, the entire year utilizing compounds and that focus, that discipline paying off right there for Simon Godziak. His wife Cassie along with their daughter, what a sigh of relief for them. So he has a solid run in the books.
So here we go. This is the furthest back takeoff on Price is Right. There's about 3 or 4 different ways to make it to that landing, and Simon Godziak deciding to step it up to the highest bid this year. And then there we go, a new drop. He does the toboggan, putting the left hand on the seat, and then there's so much exposure, that chicane leading into this big 360 drop. Now that 360 drop is a little bit lower than Carson Storch's, but that's still going to factor high on his trick and amplitude score.
There it is with the 86.66. Godziak moves into 3rd place for the moment. Incredible. Right now, back to the top as we continue with...
Well, I suppose we should get started, eh? So welcome, those of you kind of jumping in and those of you who are already here. So tonight, intro to freestyle. First off, can everyone see PowerPoint okay? Can hear me okay? All those wonderful things, cool. Well, I kind of had to dig down real quickly. It's been one heck of a week here, so I haven't had a lot of time to devote to this, but I was able to put something together today that I think you guys will play with. Mind you, this isn't the task that's in there is not mine. I stole it from Steve. It's a good one. One of you may have seen it before, maybe not, but we'll find out. To me, when I think of intro to freestyle, yes, every single lesson should include a freestyle component, whether it's playing with kids, just doing something different, getting them outside their comfort zone in one of the ranges of motion, nose to tail, toe to heel, flexion extension, as well as, you know, everyone can do an ollie. Everyone can play with that. Everyone can hop and jump on their snowboard. So I think every lesson should have a small component to freestyle. But once we start talking into actually teaching freestyle lessons, the lessons that you'll see them come up to the counter and say, "Hey, yeah, I want to have a freestyle lesson." One of the things is there are a couple of prerequisites, of course, that we should have our students be able to perform before we, go into a park, and that's where outside in teaching comes in. And let's just get into it. So I like to always set a framework for every single progression, and I like to use a model called the static, simple, complex, and free ride part of framing a progression. Static. that word itself means what to you guys? Feel free to chime in.
Stationary.
Nailed it. Stationary. Something that we're not going to be moving or sliding or having the sensation of sliding throw in to make the movements. Simple. What do you think? What do you think that entails?
Generally keeping your body still and over your board.
Cool. I like that as well, but a little more kind of moving forward. We've done the where we're not sliding. What's a next maybe step from not sliding?
Slide.
Hey, there we go. Yeah. Let's start sliding a little bit. Complex. Any ideas on what you think complex could mean?
Using your upper body in addition to your lower body while you're sliding.
I think you're on the right track, definitely. So we had the first one where we didn't move, second one where we did move. How about we do more than one thing while sliding? Maybe combining two simple tasks. Let's say we're moving nose to tail in that range of motion for our first static, and then we do a simple complex free ride for whatever trick we're trying to perform. How come we can't mix two statics or two simples together? So let's say sliding while on the nose, and then how about sliding in a pre-wound countered position? So taking two simple components and combining them together to make a more complex task. And then last, free ride. What do you do when you free ride?
Play with it.
Play and have fun. It can be structured fun, or it can be completely unstructured fun. So I like that framework whenever, especially at level 2 level, where, you know, we need perhaps a framework and it's more of a process from start to finish than it is more of a coaching event where you're maybe refining a movement or something like that. So let's get into a little bit more of this static, simple, complex free ride framework as we move through progression. Thank you, my friend. Yep, that'd be fine. Thanks. Yes, please. Thanks. You too, man. Okay. So let's start with what I talked about before. Some of the prerequisites before we really kind of going into some of these higher level freestyle maneuvers. So one of them is I want to make sure that they're linking carved turns on blue terrain. Okay. Another one is they got to be able to ride forward and ride switch, because depending on whatever trick you're planning on doing is you might have to ride out switch. Another one is the ability to pop off of 2 feet on an applied edge. So being able to carve or be on the edge or biasing an edge and being able to get yourself some upward momentum. And then the ability to ollie or nollie. Does anybody else have any things that they might see as something that they wouldn't mind having more as one of your own prerequisites before starting to take people into a park?
So is taking them into a park part of Intro to Freestyle? Because I've never taken people into a park at Intro to Freestyle.
At some point in time, you're gonna have to get them in there.
At some point.
So I would like to make sure I work on that outside in kind of teaching and make sure they can do these things. And then perhaps do whatever trick we're going to try and do outside the park and then bring it in. So in that kind of realm, would there be anything else you'd like to see from your student when kind of starting to work on this intro to freestyle stuff? Besides what's seen here?
One thing I was asked to do in the beginning was to try like squatting and standing and experimenting with the flexion and extension of my ankles, knees, and hips, and just seeing what my range of motion was before I started doing some of the activities. So as I went in, I was aware of what range I had to work with.
Nice. Exploring your ranges of motion. Besides flexion and extension, what are the other ranges of motion?
Rotation.
Nice. Spinny, spinny. What else? Can you move on top of the snowboard to nose and tail?
Yeah, okay, fore aft.
Nice. Can you
laterally
move
across the board?
Go ahead, sorry.
Laterally across the board.
Cool. Toe to heel. Sweet. Just kind of a refresher of ranges of motion. So yeah, I like what Natasha had to say about exploring your ranges before you kind of start getting to this intro to freestyle, so you know what you have to work with. So once I'm confident that they can do these things, I can start working on some of these either outside in teaching models or hopefully after that get them into the park. And these are kind of like the prerequisites I like to have. So I picked a 180. Something, you know, combines a couple of more simplish or complex tasks together to get the rider to spin in the air. So I'm not sure if this goes back to Mr. Steve Muse's kind of things he likes to talk about, which are the 8 180s in snowboarding. And by the way, if there's any skier in here that wants to help me make it apply to our alpine side, I mean, there are an extra set of edges, but we're spinning kind of the same thing. We have to be on an applied edge to initiate rotation into our body to then retract or pop off of the ski or snowboard to get it to come around. So if anybody wants to on the alpine side, please chime in. I know there seems to be a hard way and an easy way, which everybody likes to spin clockwise or counterclockwise. So I guess that might be subjective. Anyways. Oh, sweet. Peter's here. He can help with that. So anyways, back to the 8 180s in snowboarding. Let's talk about what rotation we're actually going to spin. There's the front side rotation, where this is a good one, where the chest actually moves in the direction of rotation first. So if I was going to be moving and my chest was kind of going to lead the spin, then that's going to be considered a front side rotation. If I'm going to be transversely spinning with the back of my body, directing the rotation first, it's going to be a front side or back side rotation. So by definition, that's what those two are. So you're going to see a lot of those throughout this little bit. And when you talk about spinning and direction, you can't say counterclockwise and clockwise because that's different for different people. Let's start off with the first of the 8 different 180s that each terms. I can spin in a front side direction off of my toe edge. I can spin in a front side direction, riding switch, popping off my toe edge. There's 2. I can spin backside rotation, once again, hopping off my toe edge. I can spin switch backside off the toes. I can now move to the front side, but now I'm going to hop off my heel edge. The applied edge is my heel, which is a little bit more difficult at times. Does anybody want to tell me why? Or does anybody know why? It's no big deal if you don't.
Lose all the extension ability of your ankle joint.
Nailed it. Don's on it. When you're hopping off your toes, you're able to extend real quick to add that additional pop. When you've got an applied heel edge, you can't do that. You're using your hips and your knees to extend your lower body. So you lose a little more power and a little more pop, and you've got to be kind of on it. What other tendency people tend to do when they're hopping off of their heel edge is, let's say my toes are in the air, I've got an applied heel edge carve. If I were to at all, as I'm extending my knees and hips, if I start to extend my toes, I'm now losing my applied edge and I might slip out. So that's something else that's kind of common when people are taking off their heels. So just be mindful of that as you're practicing these. And in this progression that you're going to see here, you spend a lot of time playing with both popping off the toes and popping off the heels. Any questions so far? I know this one's kind of more talking at you, and I apologize. Cool. So back to the 8 180s. We're at number, what, 5? So we got front side off the heels. And how about we do a switch front side off the heels, okay, in our switch direction. And then a backside rotation off the heels. And can anybody guess the last one? Bueller.
Switch.
Nice. Switch backside off the heels. Cool. So everybody's going to have one of these 8 that they probably like the best, that are going to be most comfortable for them, which they like to spin the direction of travel that's most comfortable to them, or they like the use of that extra ankle joint, so they want to be popping off their toes. But everybody's going to have 1 or 2 or more of these that you like. My recommendation is to practice all of them and be proficient at least with all of them, so that way you can A, teach them, 2, you can model it in your demo, and B, you can have street cred because you can say you can do all the 8 180s and you're bad. Okay, let's think about the components that build up the 180. And there are 2 major ones that come to mind to me. We'll start off with the first 180, or the first component is an flexion and extension of the lower body joints while on an applied edged either toe or heel, either forward and switch. One of the key things in that phrase that pops out to me is while on an applied edge. You can't initiate rotation without being able to have a stable base of support. You've got to be able to set that rotation. So that's one component. Another component is the upper and lower body separation with the pre-wind while sliding on an applied edge. Once again, both toe and heel, and forward and switch. Okay, so that means I am pre-winding, in the opposite direction. If I'm going to be spinning front side, I want to start my pre-wind with looking where I'm coming from, so that way I can wind into the direction I'm going to go. If I was going to be spinning backside, I want to bring the handlebars towards my nose, and then as I unwind and lock my core here, I want to be spinning backside. So remember, when we're doing the pre-wind, it's always going to be in the opposite direction of your intended rotation. Okay, so those to me are like the 2 key steps. Now there's a couple more. There's also the Getting low and getting tall on the snowboard, the flexion and extension, but that can also kind of go into that first component. I don't want to overcomplicate it right now. So I decided to pick my focus of this segment to be the two-footed pop off of an applied edge with the retraction of the lower legs towards your center of mass, sucking your feet up to your body. Now, I need to be able to do it off of my toe side. I need to be able to do it off of my heel side. And I need to be able to do it forward and a switch. So let's break it down into the components of the progression again: static, simple, complex, free ride. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to show you what I focus on in the static portion. Of course, static again means what, somebody?
Not moving.
Not moving, nailed it. Some are flat, some are comfy, some are not going to slide out. A lot of people have a tendency, and especially during exams, is to, for the sake of time, they will not find a proper spot to do something, and that can bite people. So being very mindful of actually picking a spot that you can do your static component of that framework in front of the examiners specifically. Okay, so my static one is doing a two-footed pop off of an applied or biased heel edge while standing there stationary. So everybody can get on and bias their heel edges, maybe pull their toes up slightly. You can flex down to the board and you can extend, and then you can pop off of that edge, retract, and land. Now, all of you probably know there's more components to that. What's another component to that two-footed pop and landing that you might want to talk about with your students?
Where you're looking?
Nice. Where am I looking? Am I looking at my feet? Am I looking up the fall line versus down the fall line while I'm traversing? Or while I'm standing flat based, am I looking towards where my chest is located? Am I looking anywhere else but over my lead shoulder? What else would you focus on a two-footed pop?
So
Making sure they're aligned rather than countered.
Ooh, nice. What happens when we wind up the spring, which you might want to later on, but right now we're focusing on the first part of it. What happens when we leave the ground and my spine is wound up with my shoulders pointed this direction and my snowboard's pointed this direction?
It will unwind.
Yeah. I'm just a big torsion bar spring that likes to wind up and unwind, wind up and unwind. What's another component of this two-footed pop that we might want to talk about with our students during this portion?
Symmetry of the flexion extension with each leg, like doing both equal amounts and at the same time.
Awesome. Hence, two-footed. A lot of times you see people, because they're so focused on trying to do ollies and things, that they forget that they can pop off an applied heel edge with 2 feet straight up and down. Does anybody else have anything that they kind of like to focus on with a two-footed pop?
I would say maybe
I like to focus on landing on an applied edge too. It's not always about the takeoff. I've got to be able to land it as well. Sweet. So now there's a lot of good things you could focus on, and depending on how your students are doing, you could tend to steer that. Like, hey, that was really awesome, except I saw, Donald, that you didn't quite do a two-footed extension to a retraction. You were kind of tail heavy. I want you to really focus on keeping those joints similar and just doing a two-footed jump movement. Great. So now the other side is, of course, the toe edge. If you're going to do one, you got to do the other. So same thing. I will either bias my toe edge or go ahead and put my hips over my toe edge, get my center mass right over there, and focus on the two-footed pop on the toe edge. Once again, People might like this one better. Why is that?
More stable and more ankle flex.
Yeah, I can bring that third joint in. I can allow this to give me a little extra oomph. Cool. Sweet. So that's our static exercise, not moving. Let's bring it into a simple exercise. You notice that this is going to be on like a green terrain or a very moderate slope. Now, of course, you notice how it builds off of the task we just did previously. Here, we're going to be popping off an applied edge with my natural foot forward in a traverse to a stop. What does that sound like to you guys?
We're not going to continue riding after we do the 180.
I'm sorry, what was that again? I missed that.
Never mind.
No worries. So I want to, on this, my focus is on, once again, that two-footed pop, landing on that same applied edge again, while in a traverse across the fall line. Now, after that, I can do the same thing, but with my heel edge. Once again, you can always say, hey, you know what? Carissa, that was a really great job, but I noticed you had a hard time really getting your board in the air. And I noticed as you were trying to leave the snow that you actually started to extend your ankles. Awesome. You can focus on really keeping those toes pulled up so that way we're taking off on an applied heel edge. Okay. Like I said, each one of these has little things that you can look at your students and say, okay, sweet. We need to tweak that a little bit with you, and then you'll have this. Now, here comes the fun one. Why don't we do this stuff switch as well? Same thing. I'm just doing a basic traverse. I'm doing a two-footed pop off of my applied toe edge, but I'm riding in my switch direction. And then, like the other one, we got to finish it off. So why don't we pop off an applied heel edge while we're in that traverse to a stop? So can everybody see why the static, we had the same thing, two-footed extension to a landing? Now we've added one more component in there, the simple component of actually just sliding on snow. Is this, we think this will be difficult for us? This task? Probably not. But you might find that you've got some tweaks and stuff that we could focus on a little bit with even us as higher level riders. Okay, now let's bring it into the complex. The static was, we did it basically, where we didn't move. We focused on the two-footed extension to a pop to a landing. We brought that simple component in there. We were sliding on snow in a traverse. And now let's bring it into that complex portion. So how about we just linked carved turns with a two-footed pop across the fall line? So we can take off on a heel edge, make a carved turn, pop off on a toe edge, make a nice carved turn. Okay, so we've taken this simple component and thrown in linking turns together. And then last but not least, for the static, simple, complex, free ride framework. Oh, I'm sorry, let's go back. Let's do the switch side of this. Now I want you guys to ride linked switch carved turns, focusing on the two-footed pop. You're gonna find, especially in that realm, you'll have a lot of folks who tend to be either tail heavy or nose heavy, and not a complete two-footed pop. You'll also notice on your switch side, you might not have, especially on the switch heel, when you extend, a lot more people tend to have the want to drop the toes as they're extending to get themselves into the air. So these are things, like I said, you can be mindful and you can do direct feedback to each individual, and you can do some one-on-one coaching. If you are in the exam level 2 and you're teaching something like this, and you see one of your students do one of these things, this is the perfect time to show the clinicians that you know that you have visibly seen one of your participants do something that may need some tweaking, and then you took corrective measures to steer them in the right direction. That'll guarantee you a pass in your level 2 teach segment. Anyways, free ride, the last portion. Let's go have some fun. This is time you get to practice. Why don't we kind of step it up and maybe time the maneuver with a feature / object? Kind of along that same thing with Ali, we were talking about the outside in teaching component. This is where you can do it like, here's a bamboo pole. We can pretend it's a box to ride on. Here is a glove in the snow. I want you to time your takeoff of that extension or the up in the air to jump over the glove. You know, be creative. You guys are SMRT. You guys can come up with fun little things to do with your guests. One of the things is I like to have the participants follow me as I'm writing and have them time the maneuver to the exact time I do. It's like synchronized snowboarding, you know, synchronized swimming without the water. Well, it's frozen water, so I guess it could be the same thing. I always like to pair people up, play follow the leader. You know, the follower mimics the leader, alternate the leader and the follower. However you guys choose to do class handling, I think that would be awesome. And then I like to, you know, spend a lot of time with doing these things. Jumpy for a long time until everyone is proficient, you know, before moving along. If you've got, you know, one student who doesn't quite have it, or the majority of the people are you know, falling and flailing, step it back one bit, revisit stuff, and then move forward. And then also, once again, you can always increase the terrain difficulty as needed to kind of make it a little more complex of a free ride component. Okay, so now back to the 2 components that I wanted to focus on the 180. So we just did the first bullet point, the flexion and extension of the lower body joints while on an applied edge, toe and heel, forward and switch. How about we focus on the upper lower body separation with that pre-wind while sliding on an applied edge, going toe and heel and forward and switch. This is the time that you guys get to play with this static, simple free ride component or framework of a way of doing it. So once again, what are we focusing on this section? Carissa, calling you out. You're on mute, love.
Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
So once again, on those 2 bullet points, we focus on the flexion extension for a 2-footed pop on that first one. And now we're going to kind of do a static, simple, complex free ride with that bottom bullet point. Upper and lower body separation with pre-wind while sliding on an applied edge. Toe and heel, forward and switch. So what am I going to focus on of the range of motions?
I feel rotation would be the first one, since we're doing pre-wind and theoretically going to a 180, so rotation would have to happen. So that would be the first thing I would focus on. Another one I might touch on might be flexion and extension, but that's making it more complex.
Cool. We kind of focus on the first one. It does play a part into after this, but cool. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to kind of chime in about the next step with that? Doesn't look like it, so cool. So we all are in agreement we need to focus on that range of motion of rotation, specifically in pre-wind. So I want you guys to think about, what could you do for a static segment? Once again, where do we do static segments?
On the flats.
Nice, on the flats. So what could you do in the flats to focus on that upper and lower body separation with the pre-wind?
Just practice standing and doing the pre-wind. One drill I enjoy is like taking that backhand in the pre-wind and pointing to where you're trying to go as you like pre-wind and then unwind, just standing.
Nice. Does anybody have any other kind of ways of playing with that on flatland?
We did this in a clinic last week, and we just took, I guess it would be the outside arm, and put it on our inner leg. Does that make sense? Like our inner thigh?
Mhm.
Okay.
Was that trying to get you to ride in alignment, or was that trying to kind of focus on?
We were doing 180, so in the pre-wind, he had us, do the twist and then
Nice.
put our hand on our thigh.
Okay.
It was Sean, so he followed up by touching the butt after you touched the leg you were pre-winding towards.
Wow, is that how you guys roll at 49? Touch the butt?
There were lots of butts grabbed that day.
Touched the thighs and the butt.
It was Sean, right? You said?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh my God, of course it was Sean touching the butt. Okay, awesome. Focusing on that, standing statically, and just, here I go, winding up. Sorry, it's kind of hard doing this on the bridge of the Falcon. Unless it disappears. Cool. I heard a great one from a buddy, Sean Tormey, is pretend you're riding a bicycle when you do your pre-wind. If my bicycle is going towards my nose, I'm going to then do a backside rotation. If my bicycle handlebars are wound up as I'm on my tail, I'm going to spin a front side rotation. Now, when I'm doing this static exercise, what do you think I'm doing with my edge?
That depends on how much you rotate.
Not necessarily. You could be practicing rotation and pre-wind with a flat base. You could practice it with an applied edge also. Kind of depends on what exactly you're looking to do with that pre-wind.
You could do all three too as kind of a progression. But.
Yeah.
Don't you want to be doing this with an applied edge so that you don't end up kind of washing the churn out while you're jumping?
Cool.
Kind of getting to the next part of it.
Right. So I like all those answers. I'm a discovery person. I like to say, hey, when I'm standing here flat ground statically, what happens when I pre-wind and wind up my upper body compared to my lower body while I'm on an edge? What happens when I'm doing it flat based? What happens when I do it on my toes? Now, how about I just add I go flat based and I do it really quickly?
Well, you'd keep spinning in circles and circles and circles on a flat base unless you activated an edge to stop yourself.
What does everybody else think?
I agree.
Cool. If I don't have a solid base of support, if I add pre-wind, it's just like when I go in the air. If I'm flat based, the snowboard wants to unwind in the lower body. It might not be all the way around. It might not be 90. It might not be a 30-degree angle. It might be 5 degrees, 10 degrees. But each time you unwind the spring, and especially if you lock your abs in the core, you're gonna impart that rotation straight down into the planet indoor snowboard. And if you don't have, if we're not holding on to the planet somehow, we're gonna rotate. So I like all those answers. So I could stand there statically and explore that range of motion. How much and how far can I go? I can also try it flat base and see if I can get the board to spin for me just for fun. I can also do the same thing on an applied heel or toe edge. Okay, explore it. Let's move on. So what's that? Thought I heard something. There's ghosts in the machine. So the simple component. Simple is where and I'm gonna add one more step onto this. I don't have to have it just 4 steps. I could actually take two static components and combine it together to make a simple. So what could we do statically twice to bring into a simple component? What did I focus on in this two-part of the 180?
We got to jump and we got to rotate. So taking that rotation we just did and apply it with the jumping we did before.
Cool. I like that. We could do that. We could stand there statically and give a little jump. What else could we do?
I would say just for me, I would start simpler. So doing the wind and then just unwinding.
Cool. What could we add to that? So Eliza, that was perfect. So that was the simple component we just kind of touched upon. What could we add onto that? Another simple, still in flatland, or static components, just in flatland. Could we add into there to the 180 to make it a little more complex, a little more moving?
Complete the rotation just on the snow. So you do a 180 just on the snow, not leaving the ground.
Cool. We could go all the way to there, but I want to keep it really basic. Really not moving, maybe combining two very easy things.
Are we still on flat ground or are we on a traverse?
Still on flat ground.
The extension with the rotation. So not putting the full power into it, but actually going through the motions of getting low, pre-winding, standing up, and unwinding.
Cool. We're in agreement that we could do a static component of just getting small and getting tall, getting low and getting high. We can then also bring the static component of pre-wind to unwind, pre-wind to unwind. How about we bring both those together?
Yeah, flexion extension with the unwind.
Nailed it, Eliza. That is awesome. Yeah, I'll bring my head into it. Cool. So the simple component doesn't always have to be sliding on snow. It could be, here's this static of getting small and getting tall, flexion extension on the board. Here's this other static of adding that pre-wind or getting countered and practicing that. We then could move into the simple component of doing that while sliding on snow. What if we take the getting small and getting tall and then that pre-wind into the next step? Where could we take it?
To whichever edge we're thinking about. If we're moving from a static to a basic drill.
What did I have us do in that first section, kind of in that simple?
And take it from flatland to a traverse.
Beautiful. Now we're going to bring that other component of sliding on snow into it. So I could, once again, either just choose to focus on this move while sliding on snow, or I could be really cool and add both those two static exercises together into this simple as I'm sliding on snow. Cool. So would I do that just in my normal direction, just on my heel edge?
I would do it on all of them.
Nice. I love it. Forward, switch, toe edge, and heel edge. How can I then take that we just worked on, the flexion extension with that pre-wind, and make it into a complex thing, you could follow that same framework that I did. So I did the linked carve turns with two-footed pop. Could I do linked carve turns with that pre-wind and extension? Pre-wind and extension move?
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna make
Definitely.
Can I also do it switch?
No.
Why?
Why? And then what about the last component? The free ride component. I want to hear some fun things we could do with that static, simple, complex free ride that we just came up with that we could, or static, simple, complex, that we could bring it into the free ride. What game?
Long uphill carve to a 180 and back down the mountain.
Ooh, Lawrence could be fun. What would I need to do to make that happen? If I didn't talk about popping off the snow yet. That was in my first little section.
Oh, okay. That might have jumped a step there then.
Well, that's okay. But this is where my point. Could you start then combining those two? After you've gotten them comfy playing with linking carve turns, forward and switch with the flexion extension, and then the countered or pre-wound, or countering and pre-winding.
Yes.
I've got a fun game. What if we time the pre-wind to the same thing that Lawrence was doing? We might drop our edge slightly and just allow the board to come around on the snow. That could be a fun game, but a little advanced. This is intro.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of games could you do, or fun tasks you could do? You could just free ride, just practice this. Linked toe, linked heel, linked forward, linked switch. You could try changing where you're most, where you're pre-wound towards your tail. You could time when you're pre-wound towards your nose. You could then put a glove or something in the snow to say, I want to time you to the unwind, and where you lock your core with your front shoulder just beyond your snowboard. I want you to time it right to where that glove is, and have everybody go by and time it and lock it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any ideas we could do with that?
When you're having them do that movement and they're locking it, that's going to probably skid their edge, isn't it?
Not unless they have a nice applied edge. What's that?
So then they'll feel the feedback from the edge, that torque going into the edge and not actually sliding the board.
Sweet. And then now that you've got like these two components of it, now why can't you bring them together in their own task of, okay, now we've got the front one down where we time, we have the pop or two-footed extension off of that heel edge. Why don't we add this certain pre-wind to make it a front side rotation off of the heel edge? And that's where you can combine them again to another complex task. So just like your beginner progression, this static simple free ride framework, you can move around a little bit depending on what you want to do. You could do what we just talked about. We could do the static component of the first section, which was the two-footed pop. We could do the simple component, which is two-footed pop with a traverse. Then they can go back to static again and do the pre-wind nose to tail. Then I can go back to the simple of doing that while I'm traversing. Then I can go back again and take the static of getting small and getting tall. Then I can move that into the simple of doing that in a traverse. Then I can combine all those together to practice riding in the traverse, getting tall, getting small, and getting that pre-wind rotation in the direction that I want to go. And then I can then at some point bring those two together to actually bring the 180 together. And what comes with that is timing.
Not think that bad yet.
So in specific to level 2 is I would recommend picking one part of the 180 and focusing on the segment and doing a static, simple, complex free ride to it. That's going to show the examiners that you have the ability to take a complex task and give them a section or a portion of it. And you need to frame this. You say, hey, I'm expecting my students who are going to be doing this front side 180 with me to be able to link carb turns on blue terrain. They can ride forward and switch. And what we're going to work on, and then go into your progression. Always frame your segment, especially for your level 2 teach. And then give them a static component. Say, hey, my focus is on the 2-footed extension move. So statically, I'm going to have you guys start here and 2-footed pop on heel edge, 2-footed pop on biasing a toe edge. Awesome. Now move into the simple, bring it into a traverse. Heck, even bring it into pointing the board down the fall line, biasing an edge and hopping. I mean, anything to kind of step it up one notch. And then the complex section is to add a bit of difficulty to it, add it into like carb turns. Or you could, if you really wanted to go bite into it, bring 2 simple components together, as long as you guys feel like you have enough time. Once again, with your exam, it's timed. I would recommend sticking with one segment. And then I would end it after the free ride, play a game, do follow the leader, do something, and then say, okay, guys, awesome. So during this segment, we focused on the 2-footed extension to the pop off of snow. Brian, I saw that you at first had a hard time with a 2-footed pop. You were a little bit nose heavy. You were on your front leg a little bit, and then we worked on you focusing on a 2-footed extension, and you came around. Lawrence, I saw when we did a 2-footed pop on your heel edge, you dropped your toes, causing it to slide out slightly. Just remember, keep pulling those toes up when we're doing that heel side traverse to a pop. And then say, next I would take this into doing the rotational aspect by adding the pre-wind component and going through that. Then you're gonna, that's a nailed progression right there. Static, simple, complex, free ride. It's a wonderful little framework of a thing, especially an intro to freestyle. You could take this into the next level of, okay, how about we do box riding? How can I take the components that are involved into doing a 50-50 on a box or rail and break it down with this static, simple, complex free ride component? And I challenge you guys to do that in your own lessons, in your own mind. And like I said, intro is always that outside-in teaching model. Build the skills outside the park that you can then take into the park. So if I'm doing an intro to freestyle like 180, like we can then, okay guys, awesome. Now we can bring this into the park and actually take it off of a feature. And I would start working on a small lip or something outside. And then once I feel they're confident, then I'd bring them inside the park and then actually time things with the feature. Same thing with box riding and rails, exactly the same. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments, things they want to add, questions about like their own stuff, their own teaching progressions? Cool. Eliza, I did get your email. It's been a hectic week, and I'm going to respond to you tonight or tomorrow. If you guys have any questions, what's that?
Allie helped me out today, so.
Okay, good. Good. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me. I might, during the busy part of the days and stuff, I might not get back to you right away, but I will get back to you. It always stays there. Cool. And I challenge you guys to come up with, like, I took just recipe cards, and I took every single level 2 topic and broke it down into this exact static, simple, complex free ride, focusing on either a range of motion or a component of the task. One of the hardest ones is dynamic carve turns. There's just a lot going on at that exact time. So that one is a tough one when you get, but that one's easy if you break it down. Sweet, dynamic carve turns. I'm going to focus on the range of motion of nose to tail and just go through that with a static, simple, complex free ride component. And then after you're done there, of course, you're going to have that warm and fuzzy seat with the clinician or examiners, and they're going to kind of pick your brain on, like, where would you take this next? Or you had them focus on this and this. What other range of motion could you have focused on? At level 2, it's especially nuts and bolts. Knowing what you need to do, and of course, knowing the why you're having them do it, because they're going to ask you why.
Do you have the requirements, the teaching requirements, writing requirements for that matter, for the level 2 in an easily accessible spot?
Oh, yes, I do. Let me give you my email address on the message board here. If you email me real quick, I can get that out to you. If anybody wants that, I put up a nice handout that I give my level 2 candidates that have everything step by step. I take the snowboard cert guide and pull out the applicable sections so you don't have something that's like that thick with level 1 and level 3 stuff. It just focuses on your spot. So I'd be happy to get that out to you guys.
I think there's also still a few stapled packets in the level 2 binder by the old time card station in our locker hallway area.
Yep.
And I think the information's there too, right?
Exactly. And I've got that in electronic form too, so I could easily get that to folks who would like that.
I'd like one.
Awesome. I'm going to put Eliza on the list. I'll get that out to you. I have your email.
Okay.
Cool.
I don't actually see you, so.
Yeah. Well, hopefully sometime soon I can come up and ride with you guys. I totally want to. It'd be fun to do that again.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey guys, thanks for coming. We're a couple minutes early to go, so I don't have much else unless you guys have more questions.
Nope. Thank you.
Does anybody have?
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah. Does anybody have an idea maybe for next week is movement analysis, both alpine and snowboard. But does anybody have any topics more level 2 specific they'd like to see the following week? You can either tell me now, or if you like comes to you, in a dream or something, you can email me.
I'll be thinking on that. I want to come up with something for it.
Okay.
And that's level 2 specific. Is that in snowboarding, alpine, or all of it?
Well, I would say all of it, and I can try to get somebody more alpine specific level 2 oriented to kind of help with those wonderful things, which I now do.
I was just wondering if we wanted to do some children's specialist stuff in there too, because that is really helpful for studying for level 2.
Yeah.
That would be really helpful, actually. That was a really good suggestion. I don't think I've ever covered anything for children's specialists. So maybe we could touch on that or have like an introduction to that.
Yeah.
And that's really good because we got to talk about the center of mass being different on kids versus adults and all that fun. They learn differently. Just a little bit, but they learn differently.
And on that same note, as as a children's specialist clinician, I highly recommend you guys signing up for the CS1 and CS2. It's totally revamped. It's not, boring, and it's not usually just the one token snowboarder anymore and all these skiers. It's now usually pretty mixed and a lot more snowboard oriented. I try to make that a priority.
Do they have children's specialists 2 on the calendar now? Because they hadn't had it their first week of January.
Not that I'm aware. There was a CS1 scheduled at Bachelor that didn't run. I was going to run it, that no one signed up for. They now put some more CS1s on the books. I don't think they're 100% complete with some of the online content for the CS2, but it's like any day now. So
Okay.
just keep an
Yes,
eye
I'm
on
looking
the
for the CS2.
calendar.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming, guys, and I hope you had. I know it was a little drier than usual. I apologize. I didn't get a chance to put a bunch of fun videos and things like that, but that's next week. Cool. Well, thank you, everybody, and
Thank you,
I'll see you
JC.
next time.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go fly off here. Okay.
Bye.
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 How do you want these ski bowl passes? Just an email?
Yes, please. Yeah, email me if you'd like to do it. If you'd like to run it as well.
Okay, I haven't seen Tim or ski bowl except the one time with Gordo, so I don't know the terrain at all.
That's okay. I wrote it for the first time last night.
All right.
Yeah, it's nothing yet. Well, that you won't get lost. But yeah, I'm trying to find. Maybe I can get Peter Carry on or somebody to lead one over there, or I might do the snowboard side. Maybe get Betancourt to do the alpine side. We'll see what happens.
Okay, let's see what you can find. I'd rather not run the first one, but I'm totally game to consider running a future one.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy.
All right, thank you.
A pleasure seeing you. Hey, and thanks for coming, Ed. I've got more ski-specific stuff coming next week. I wanted to try and get an alpine trainer, freestyle specific, to help me out tonight, but that didn't come to fruition. Like, the only difference I can think of is, which is hard way, which is easy way, applied, inside edge, applied outside edge, as we're trying to set the spin and set our rotation. So,
well, there's the whole 2-foot thing that I haven't figured out. I've done one box slide and decided I'm not going back on a box.
Nice. Cool. All right, folks. And then I did record this one 100%, so you'll be able to catch the end of it, or the beginning of it. Okay. I'll see you guys.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye.